Okay.
Oh,
We're live.
no.
We're live.
Oh.
Hi, everybody.
Well, good morning, everyone. I kind of screwed up. I was looking over here and it said end broadcast, and I'm what? Wait, no.
What? No. We're
Yeah.
live.
Good
Yeah.
morning, everyone.
Yeah, good morning. That's what we should do is have a joke first thing in the morning. Well, the one thing about live is that it's all the blunders too.
Yeah, there's no looking back.
There's no looking back, none whatsoever. Well, today, folks, we are talking about what happens emotionally when a dog is abandoned or surrendered.
Ooh.
Now, we know that Roman is really kind of an expert because he's had a lot of experience with this. And I have too, especially working through the shelters. And the one thing we know for sure is that a person that is making a choice to abandon, or not necessarily abandon, but surrender or relinquish their dog, it's a very difficult decision for most. There are some categories of people that do it for foolish reasons, but that's not what this show is about. This show is about what happens to the dog emotionally and psychologically when someone is giving them up, especially if they came from a very loving home, that they were able to take care of the dog in a very loving way, and the kids were good, and they may have been there for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, and then all of a sudden now they're going into a new environment. We want to go over today what those options are that are available to those that feel that they have to lost my train of thought there for a second. for those people that have to change what they're doing and they don't know where to go to. So let's start with what is the difference between abandoned and surrendered? Okay, does anybody want to go with that? Roman? Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Well, from a dog's perspective?
Well, from a person's perspective, what is abandoned and what is surrendered?
Well, abandonment means leaving the dog somewhere with no restrictions, somewhere in the street, in the yard, somewhere. Tidying him up at the shelter is abandonment. Okay, in public places, putting the dog in a crate on the side street, tying the dog on a tree next to your yard for free. That's abandonment, basically, whoever can take the dog out. Surrendering the dog goes more into official route. You surrender the dog to a new home. You surrender the dog to another adopter, to a rescue, to a shelter. So these are more organized. So the option for the dog to get out alive in the official way is the surrendering.
Mm-hmm.
While the abandonment gives the dog a 20% chance to make it out there.
Exactly. Well, we have some statistics here that this is by the ASPCA. They say that approximately 710,000 animals who enter shelters as strays or return to their owners, or if they are relinquished. And 620 of those are dogs. 620,000 of those are dogs. Mm-hmm. So that's a staggering amount, which means that at least 2/3 of all animals that are surrendered are dogs.
Not really. The numbers are the dogs who end up in the shelter. That's only 20%.
Right. Yeah, that's
all the dogs who being
right.
Moving hands. Okay. So 20% are friends and family. Another 20% are social media. And then we have whatever. So 20%, 20%, and 20% is where dogs are shifted. And the other one, we have no control of it. We don't know.
Right. And then you have a lot of dogs that are in different circumstances, especially now. So they're being used. They're not being even abandoned. They're just being given like to fighting groups and different groups, so that it's a real bad situation right now. It
It
really is,
is.
because people are looking to make money. So they're doing dog fights, and it's kind of sad. I know you were mentioning that too, Roman. So, what actually now emotionally, what happens to the dog? Here's the dog. Now, let's set up this scenario. I'm going to give you a picture here so that you can see. Here's a dog that's a loving dog, and this woman loves him very much, and she's going to have to give him up. And now the dog looks like this in the shelter. What happens emotionally to that dog when that owner does not come back and it's been relinquished to a shelter?
First of all, I apologize to those empaths who watched that video. Well, the first is confusion. The dogs are in a family. Dogs believe in a family system. Dogs live in a non-linear, family-oriented system, and so they believe they are part of the family. They don't believe themselves being human. That doesn't mean anything to them, but they are part of the family. Therefore, they are important, and their performance and their offering of service is towards the family. In other words, the dog is the family. Make sense? Now, if I remove the dog from that family, the dog doesn't understand why he was removed. The first feeling that he has, and dogs have feelings and emotions just like a 5-year-old, including guilt. Okay, I put that in there. So the dog feels that he didn't perform well, and that's why he was abandoned. He was removed from the family, outcasted. And that creates another problem. It's because trauma. The dog doesn't understand why he was. There was no explanation to that. And he thinks the reason why he was abandoned because he wasn't good enough. And that can escalate. So if people surrender the dog because of behaviors, whether the dog attacked somebody or barked at people, then he thinks that wasn't good enough. So he will escalate it to the next level, making sure that's going to happen again. Traumas are involved in the transaction. People come in, people take the dog away, dog loses his home. Now the dog doesn't trust people coming up too, meaning is the dog later on becomes more aggressive when people come into the new adopter's home because it doesn't want to go through the same trauma again. So there are behaviors attached and emotion attached. They are basically just like children, really. So
Right.
the dog is going through a confusion, frustration. There is lack of attachment. So the attachment relationship is broken. Secure attachment doesn't exist. The dog doesn't have a safe place. He is in a nowhere land and has nobody to trust. And that can cause a lot of anger and frustration. That can cause aggression. And aggression is just because of defense mechanism. The dog is being reactive to everything that he feels threatened by. So we have a survival response kicking in the moment the dog leaves the house. Separation anxiety, resource guarding, toy guarding, space guarding, person guarding. Because if the dog goes into a new home or a new adopter, even in the shelter, he will guard his kennel so nobody else will take it away from him. Dogs become reactive because he's going into survival relationship with the next available person he may have, including a care provider at the shelter or in a foster home. He may do great there, temporary, but he will soon decline pretty quick. It can take up to 3 weeks, but you will see already dogs reacting the first week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then they will escalate. A month or two, dogs start getting kennel crazy. Over 250 days on kennel can cause long-term behavior issues.
Yeah. And now here's a picture of a dog that was only in the shelter for a little over 24 hours. Now, this is a dog that was very happy, came in a very good home, came from a home that did not, the person was sick and ended up having to go into a hospice care. So he had been with the family all his life. And this is the kind of view of what he looks like just 24 hours later, totally forlorn, not eating, not drinking, not doing anything.
Depression is the first thing that kicks in.
Yeah. And that's what happens. Now, here's the scenario with that, folks. Now you go to the shelter and you want to get a dog. and you see this dog, and this dog is just sitting there doing nothing, you have absolutely no idea what really happened to the dog. You don't know all you see is a little chart that says good with children, good with other dogs. You have no idea that the parents had, how it was rehomed, unless the story was told to the shelter employees, unless that story was open. Otherwise, you're going to see the same thing over and over again: how much they weigh, what they look like, and good with children, etc. But this dog was very loving and had a very good loving home. So the question is, where should that dog go? Should that dog be in a shelter? Absolutely not. And what could that person what could they have done instead of bringing that to a shelter, especially if they brought it to a kill shelter? That's like a definite no. There's so many other options that we have. So really, what are the options to those people that feel that they must give their dog to a new owner?
I guess I'll answer here the question.
Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, I see many people who post on social media, my dog did this, my dog did that. And then there's just a whole bunch of 300, 600, 500 responses of keyboard warriors, and then telling them how irresponsible that is to have that dog who attacked your child, kill your family, destroy your reputation, and irresponsibility, and all these words coming up.
Yeah.
And my question was, what exactly happened?
Yeah.
Where did it happen? When did it happen? Who was present? What did the dog do? What did the person do? I need to understand how it happened.
Exactly.
Right?
There's always two sides to a story, and the dog can never tell their story.
There's always a reason the dog did something, either to avoid things or to gain more of it. That aside, let's say the worst case scenario, the dog needs to leave the house for different reason. The person is being injured, the child being injured, dogs being injured. The person doesn't feel safe anymore in this house with that particular dog. It's a justified emotion. That's totally okay. Where can the person go? Number one, shelters will take the dog in. They have to. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Rescues don't have to. Dogs with a bite history will not be taken in by a rescue because of the responsibility. A trainer can step in who worked eventually with a dog and understand the consequences. He takes a dog in, works with the dog, brackets, certified trainer, positive trainer that knows what he's doing. Okay. Not self-proclaimed behavior specialist and, using whatever tools. And then we have the third option is getting him into temporary foster care away from home for the dog to remain safe from himself and anybody else while some arrangements are being set.
Right.
First of all, in that case, the first thing I always say to people, before you make any decision, check with your veterinarian if the dog has medical conditions. Okay. Children, 400,000 children being bitten every year, that's the statistics, or 3.2 million people get injured by their own dogs because the dog had an issue.
Right.
An ear infection can cause a bite.
Right. Fleas,
allergies. My dog stepped something on his leg. My dog has something on his butt.
Right.
You touch him on his butt, you get a bite because that happens, right? Eliminate medical conditions. Number two, understand the environmental factors. Okay. So before we make any decisions, reach out for help, even if it costs. A veterinarian may be less expensive than putting your dog down or driving to the shelter.
Yeah. Good morning. Good morning, Dale. Dale has a comment here too. He says, I think the shelters should lower the adoption rates. $400 is a lot of money for a young family.
I need to point out, if you cannot afford $400, you should not get a dog in the first place. A, because the dog will cost you about $1,000 on medical care or training care through his first year. Okay, so if the shelter doesn't pay for it, like vaccinations, medication, care, a dog costs per day for the first 13 days $75 a day average in US. So if a
That's
dog
good
is
to
there
know.
10 days, that's $750.
Mhm.
And the shelter doesn't get those $75-50 back. He relies on funds from the city or the town and donations.
Mhm.
So have you guys donated to the shelter so he can lower the rates? No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's the right number. I would say a number to be feasible. $250 would be a good number.
Uh-huh.
However, I see people who take a dog for $250 and then don't go to the vet, don't get training, buy cheap food, and then surrender the dog back again to the shelter because it's affordable.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it absolutely makes sense. Well, it gets me riled up. I don't know, Gaetan, do you have any comments on what you would think it would be like to have a dog in your house that you knew that you had to bring to a new home? Would you rather bring him to a shelter, or would you rather bring him to a foster home, or would you rather find a new home for them altogether?
My first choice would be to find a new home. That I think this is the best thing to do. You know the dog. You think a new house, a new environment would be suitable for the dog. So my instance will say, I'll find somebody, and I know the person. I can trust the person. I know the person will be organized and disciplined enough to work to have a dog or take care of a dog, not work the dog, but be able to take care of the dog, have a dog in the family as a part of the environment, and be able to take care of the dog, not just, oh, I have a new toy. It's four legs, it's bark, it's poo, and there's fur
Yeah,
all over the place.
yeah,
I'm stuck. So
yeah, right.
it's
Yeah.
not exactly the perfect new environment for the dog because that will just call for trouble.
Okay, so would you say that this is something you shouldn't do, right?
Uh, that's
Who whoever did this,
uh,
you just want to shoot them. It is just a deplorable, just deplorable. Talk about social media going wild. They sure went wild over that particular picture. Who does that? Go figure.
Well, there's a market. There are
Yeah.
people who don't want to go to shelters. They don't want to go to rescues. They go next door.
Yeah.
They use apps. They search for free dogs. Why would I pay for a dog if I can find one free?
mhm.
Yeah.
The
And
question
be
is,
leery of that. Be leery of free dogs.
why does social media give that option?
Hmm.
Number one, I
Yeah.
see something. What can I do about it? Can I push
Yeah.
a button and point that out? Hey, there's a deal going on. Facebook, I think, doesn't allow exchanges that kind of way. I'm not sure, but some point PETA stepped in as a major investor in Facebook, and they have kind of like voting rights on that.
Hmm.
But all of a sudden, that disappeared. It kind of went back again. I don't know what happened there. Um, I know that some people are viciously going through all these posts and tag them and mark them and do whatever they think they have to do,
Hmm.
but it doesn't help the dog at that point.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay,
It's a
there's no
fight between the
right.
people.
There is no
Hmm.
regulation what I do if I have an animal,
Hmm.
what my responsibility is. The rescue has a responsibility. You can go after the rescue and his funds if the dog does something. A person, if he sells the dog to a person and signs a contract, he can be reliable for what happened after the dog was adopted. So
Hmm.
there are restrictions there people need to be aware of. And so if you don't have a good contract, that person 3 months later comes back to you and sues you because his dog bit his child and you have
Right.
no clue what happened, right? So these are all triggers. Then
Yeah.
animal control is overwhelmed because they cannot follow up with those cases. They just don't go.
Right. Right. Okay, so here Dale is saying rehome your pet. .com they charge $99 to adopt. Well, actually, Dale, we were going to that's one thing that's funny that you should mention that, because what does it mean? Here we are, rehome. Oh, I got to show it. Here we are. What does it mean to and rehome is what we're going to recommend that you guys do. And it talks about here that it's a difficult decision to make, but if you know that it's going to somebody that is going to rehome, and what is the fastest way to rehome your dog? Well, this particular group, you can create a profile, you can add in your dog's picture, you can do everything. It's all free to participate in the rehoming process. And then people can contact you directly about your dog, and you can send them pictures, you can send them information, and who better to know what your dog is like than you?
Mhm.
So
Okay.
it makes much more sense to be able to rehome a dog to someone that is looking, but you got to be careful who's looking.
Here's a question. People don't have judgment of how to do that. I worked for a rescue for many years. I was part of a rescue. And when we were vetting adopters, we went social media. We will look at the profiles, see who is related to. And then we found sometimes out that the address they gave us, one in particular gave us the president's address in Washington.
Oh, gee.
And I was like, wait a minute. Is this person lives in
Pennsylvania
DC or
Avenue.
Washington, right? And so we looked at the address and was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Another person basically, um, his mother was in a do not adopt list because of their abusive to the dogs. The shelters locked him down. So he had her son do the job. And we
Yeah,
found that out.
yeah, you're right. There is no verifying system
No, you
for
cannot.
wherever the dogs are being adopted, whether it's through a
Veterinarian
shelter.
is a good source. Local animal shelter is a good source. Call them
Yeah,
in person. Hey, I want to adopt this dog. Do you guys have any records? Is any filing going on? So is the
right.
dog being on file for being aggressive, and now the dog owner's trying to find him another home so he doesn't go to that channel? So there are all these options. So we have to be very careful. I would not adopt a dog unless it's a rescue or a reputable shelter that has a foster system or a behavior assessment system, because you're putting you time bomb in your house, man.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Really.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny too. People like you, Roman, you were mentioning before that people will relinquish their dogs because of behavior issues, and rather than bringing in someone like you, they go ahead and they relinquish them. Well, there's circumstances you don't turn your child in. If let's say you adopted a child, you don't turn them in because they misbehaved. You look at the problem and you assess it, and you find resources to be able to help with those problems. What's the matter with people? I don't know. Makes me
Well,
angry.
dogs are still considered property, right?
Yeah.
So it's a property, it's an item, it's something you go and buy from off the shelf. You buy online, it's shipped to you, delivered to your home like a package.
Amazon.
What is your relationship? Amazon doesn't deliver dogs, but I mean, the idea is of this consumability of a dog. You don't have that relationship of you have to get married, you have to get the child to school, and this is all the responsibility. Family knows about it. Everything can go under the radar, so it's not a big deal. So our mindset is different. In US, it's different. In India, it's different. In Africa, it's different. In Europe, it's different. It's a social thing.
Hmm.
It's I see that situation. I never seen that in Europe. We have abandonment in Europe a lot, South Italy, Spain, Greece, but these dogs at least can group up and team up themselves in groups. They can survive. In US, they cannot.
Okay, so then would you suggest that every shelter, every rehoming place has options available for someone like yourself, have a trainer available, whether it be online or even a
On call.
consultation or on
Yeah.
call or something, with every single adoption that goes on, to make certain that that dog makes a transition that can
Yes.
be healthy and acceptable? Because there's nothing worse than getting a dog into a new home and you expect the dog to behave.
It's cheaper, considering that a dog in the shelter costs $75 a day for the first 13 days. That's statistic of
Yeah.
2011. That would be cheaper to have one person on staff answering questions. Why do you want to surrender your dog? Oh, my dog growled at my baby. Hold on, give me a second. Let me tell you a few things. Good. Do you still want to surrender the dog? Oh, it was that easy? Yeah.
Right.
Oh, my dog is peeing my carpets. My husband hates my dog, wants to get rid of him. Okay, how old is your puppy? Did you potty train your puppy? Oh, do I need to potty train my puppy? I thought it was programmed. No, it's not. You know? So we have to kind of, people are literally, there is no pet education available, and people get lost in those internet ideas
Yeah.
and stories what the puppy can do. Puppies are snuggle bunnies. No, they're
Yeah.
not. They're individual beings, need health and support and care throughout their lifetime. So it's not just
Right.
thing you put in place and everybody has fun with it until it's time to leave, and then everybody puts him in a crate. It's
Right.
not like that.
Right.
So
Yeah.
there is a lack of education. That's what I'm trying to do. I work with big shelters, um, Rogue Valley Humane Society, Austin Shelter, um, PAC 911 in Arizona, with local shelters here in the community. What we do is basically try to offer first response service and support for those people who think about giving up the dog, take that hit off the shelter, and solve the problems that are easily done in 20 minutes. A 20 minutes call can save that dog's life,
Hmm.
just like that.
Yeah.
That's an inexpensive option. 20 minutes call, answering a question, solving the problem. Dog stays in the house.
Right. Right.
No
Well,
problem.
you know what happens too is people always ask other dog owners what they should do with their dogs.
Right?
And a lot of bad advice. Well, hit him, smack him on the nose. Smack him on the nose if he pees on the
I
floor.
remember a friend of mine who was divorced about my marriage.
Oh,
Whoa.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't end up well.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know why people would do that. I guess I'm having an I don't understand day.
They avoid
Because-
to be blamed. They avoid to be blamed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they ask questions, so they get empathy, and they justify their actions. That's what I see. I
Yeah.
think maybe people have other options, but I feel what I'm observing, because I'm being tagged all the time on Facebook and all this stuff. My first question is, what happened if I don't put the question right and it comes in as accusation? They go rogue.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's with all of social media, that no matter what you say, you have to word it correctly, because otherwise you're always going to get those that are going to complain and find fault
Yeah.
and find you wrong. So the next question I have is, when is it wise to move when is it a wise move to relinquish a dog to a shelter or a rescue? What are the requirements? Because there are some shelters that are kill shelters. But we got some buzzing going on here.
Yeah.
It's my weather.
Oh, okay.
It's raining?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's
So
explains everything.
sorry for the noise. I'm in my RV. Don't
Yeah.
be fooled about the back screen, like it's still my RV.
That's okay. It's okay. Be
you don't have-
authentic. Let's be authentic. I thought he had a green screen, but no.
So
It's a
I think
backdrop.
here's what I would agree to surrender the dog in the shelter after I had a consultation. Let's say I'm not existing, I'm just observing, okay, situation. The owner took the dog, good advice from the veterinarian. He got advice from somebody who is knowledgeable professional about the dog's behavior. And it's considered that it's unsafe for the dog to be in that house, and it's unsafe for the family to be in that house for multiple reasons, okay? Now, once those two things are clear, the dog is healthy and the dog is safe
Mhm.
to go to, then he should be able to go to a shelter. If there's a bite injury, likely only shelter. If the dog doesn't have a bite history, there is no problem the dog going to a rescue, to a breed-specific rescue, who is reputable, who has records of adoptions. And I would say check the reviews and Google it. I mean, I know of rescues that take thousands of dollars on donations, and their dogs don't survive.
Mhm. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. This
Yeah.
being taken care of already. That's already in the past. So these people are being accused for 36 cases of animal abuse.
Oh, well, there's a lot of people that they just think, well, I'm so excited because the shelter is going to take my dog, without looking at what the shelter is all about and what the
Dogs don't-
rescue.
Shelters don't kill dogs on site.
Right.
As dog is taking in. If the dog has a bite history, it's more difficult because he has to go through a process. The dog is on hold for 10 days.
Mhm.
Okay, the shelter has to find out the situation. I know of a person who surrendered his sister's dog to the shelter, saying that it was his own.
Mm.
The dog went onto the use list. Unfortunately, the original owner was a vet tech and he was on vacation.
Oh gosh.
He came back without his
Oh.
dog. So there are things going on in the background we don't know. So shelters should hold 10 days at least and should not kill the dogs. You should always do a veterinary check first, see if the dog has medical issues, and reevaluate the dog, because I would never trust a surrender list.
Mhm.
They don't say, the questioner doesn't say anything. What happened? Why do you surrender the dog? My dog was aggressive. And
Mhm.
we trust that. That's the intake. Nobody asked the questions, what exactly was it?
Mm-hmm.
Feeding
Exactly.
condition of the
And
dog.
a lot of times you see pictures of the dogs that, and I've attested to it myself when I ran a shelter, when people relinquish the dogs, there's an automatic feeling that the person in the shelter or the rescue feels of anger towards the person that's relinquishing the dog,
Yeah.
and they don't even want to find out what really happened. They see
Yeah.
the dog that's clinging to the person, to their owner, and now they've got to take the dog away from them, and it's almost like they want to get rid of them. You didn't deserve to have this dog. And it's good to find out what the real story is and find out what goes on in that shelter. What are you going to do with my dog to make certain that they're going to get a good home? Because here's why I'm giving this dog up. Maybe I'd be coming in, I'd say I have cancer, I'm going into hospice care, and this is the love of my life. I love this dog, and it's killing me to have to give him up. Well, then, that if they take the time to hear the story, I think that helps too.
Mm-hmm.
I
you
think it
know
should be made a little bit more difficult. No, it's tricky, because at least the dog is going into a shelter system. He's not becoming the 80% that we don't know of,
right.
or he doesn't become the fighting ring dog, or he doesn't become the abuse dog. Many abusers adopt dogs to abuse them, so they don't do it towards their families.
Right.
There is an issue here,
Mm-hmm.
especially now through COVID. Those numbers are skyrocketing, and there's nobody there to control them.
Yeah, well, see, I think my suggestion is that if the dog is being rehomed, whether it's to a shelter or to someone else, I think they should immediately go from the shelter rescue right into the foster list, to
Yes.
get them right in there, so they spend minimal time in the shelter,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to a dog that's a stray off the street that you don't know the background of, etc.
Once the dog is healthy, he should go to foster care.
Yes. Yeah, I totally
And you
agree
guys
with.
do such a great job, because I love the other show that you do, helping shelters, promote their animals, so the
Mhm.
animals being moved out of the foster care, first in, first out kind of situations, and promote that those shelters need more fosters and bring that education back in. I love that part.
Yeah, exactly. So here's a question. Can a dog love again in a new home? Can he ever forget?
No. Dogs
Yes
never
and
forget.
no. Yes.
Dogs never
Okay.
forget. Will he love? Well, yeah, but what is love? Love is dogs have unconditional love. They're natural species. We have love very restricted. If a dog has everything provided and he has the ability to connect with a secure attachment relationship, the dog feels safe, the dog feels loved and cared for, the dog is fine.
Mhm.
Some dogs go through a trauma. They don't know how to get into a secure attachment relationship, which is similar numbers with children. So only 32% of children have a secure attachment relationship at home. So do dogs, because people have struggled, children struggle. They just don't have that safety. I see from my perspective, working with people online, that as soon as we build secure attachment relationship, 90% of the behaviors disappear.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. Exactly. So the last suggestion that I want to make is that if you're going to
So cute.
rehome your dog, make sure you pack all his stuff, pack his toys, his water bowl. Make sure that you give some kind of piece of clothing that has your scent on it, so that they can feel comfortable. Make certain that you put a written out list of what the dog's behavior is, so that
Habits.
whoever is going to get that dog, they know exactly what they're getting. And because for it to transfer verbally from
Mm-hmm.
one human to another, it's going to get lost in the
Right.
translation, that's for sure. So if you have it all documented, what you can expect from this dog, it'll help immensely, especially if it goes from your home to the shelter temporarily and then a foster. It'd be great if you could do a foster home right away.
I want to point something out here, because always it gets confusion. My dog is good with children. My dog is good with dogs.
What does that mean?
What does it mean? My dog is good with my children and good with his friends.
Yeah,
Okay. People see that and says, great, I have children, I have dogs, perfect, I'll take that dog. Well, that dog is aggressive to stranger dogs.
that's
And
right.
that dog always crowd to strangers' kids.
That's right.
Problem. So don't take that for granted. Always consult a behaviorist if a dog is
Right.
being threatened by his family, because you don't know why it happened. There's always this mystery thing. Nothing
Yeah.
wrong. You saved yourself a lot of money just having a 1 hour consultation with a professional, making an assessment of that dog the proper way, the breed specific way. And you learning from internet about the breed doesn't make you a breed professional.
Right. Right.
Okay.
So let's recap what we talked about today. Fostering is important. Actually, that would be the greatest goal if you can't find someone to adopt them directly.
Right.
Adopting directly, many people will put an ad in the paper and they'll try and find someone, or they don't know really where to go. So if you can rehome, we'll put a link to Rehome in the comments down below, and we'll let everyone know where they can go to if they need to rehome. Secondly, if you have to um, if you have to bring the dog to a shelter, then make certain that you have everything that the dog owns, along with a letter, in there. And you also want to review the shelter to find out exactly what. Here's some noise in the background. uh, you want to find out what the reputation is of that particular shelter. And then thirdly, you want to make certain that when you're leaving the dog, that it's a pleasant departure, because it's difficult. And what is your suggestion on that? Because when someone is there and they have to leave their dog, I know there's a lot of tears, there's a lot of emotions, and then the dog's taken away. They feel that they did something wrong, and it becomes what is the best way to let your dog go?
I feel the first thing we have to do is bring a transition time. Spend a little bit of time with the people, take the dog out for a walk, be there for the dog a couple of hours, make the dog feel comfortable with these new people, and then make it short and quickly, say goodbye and just leave. And you cannot look back those long-term connections with, like, see how he does. Well, if you're worried about, don't let him go. So keep him or leaving him. So makes those adoptions really short.
Okay, well,
Just
thanks, Roman. What?
Yep, that's pretty much it.
I was going to say thanks for being on the show, Roman. We're going to say goodbye to you now, so that Gaetan and I can close the show. Thank you very much. We always
Thank you.
appreciate your
Thank
expert
you.
input. Thanks. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Okay, Gaetan, what a great show, huh? So
Excellent.
what's coming up now for us in the coming weeks here?
Okay. I'm excited,
Okay, good.
which is rare. This is my moment of excitement. Done. At the end of the month, like the 29th of May, 1st of June, something like that, Illinois will reopen, kind of. At least the park and the public space will reopen. I'm going to take my camera out and I'm going to have a day of filming dogs in the
Good.
park and having people filming with their dog and filming the dog and not the people. And I'm going to get throw myself outside and film as much as I can with my equipment and have cute shot and at least get out and interact with the dog owner and dogs and have some original material I can bring together. Maybe I'll create like dog encounter of the third kind version 2, something like that. But I cannot wait. It's not this Memorial weekend. It's the next weekend. Then the park will open in Illinois. So I'm not
Okay.
complaining about their policy. Be safe first and be alive, and then enjoy life. So that's the first thing. The second thing, which is done, I start doing that, is I have posted video on the Dog Connection Show page on
YouTube.
YouTube. Dog Connection Show on YouTube. And that will be our go-to for videos we have produced in the past and that we're going to produce in the future. And I released the series for Narnia pet training. It was in the context of the COVID-19 and people fostering dogs. I thought that was a good series to put out. And every day I'm taking some video from the past year of production, a year of production, and I will post that on the YouTube channel, The Dog Connection Show.
Okay.
And this is a favor I'm asking it to the audience. I'm just asking you to subscribe and like video. If you like one video,
Like them all.
thumbs up and subscribe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why, instead of asking money and saying we'll raise money to produce the show without any penny from the audience, we have like a way of getting funded by having subscriber on YouTube. Yeah. There's a minimum requirement, and I'm sure with the people watching the show on a weekly basis, if 1% of the people, and include yourself in the 1%, I'm talking to the audience, if you listen to this and I say 1% of the audience is subscribing to the channel, that will make our show viable. Include yourself as the 1%. It's cost you nothing in dollars. It's cost you nothing in time. The only thing will happen, you will receive a message that we are posting or have posted a new video. That's it. There's nothing else. We're not giving your name to any company to bombard you with marketing and this and that. We keep that information private. We're not distributing that information. And for us, that will be one way to finance the operation. We have the ambition of going for 20 shows in the next month. And I just have a list of service dog for the next 20 show or topics of service dog. Child with speech impairment, eyes for the blind people, rehabilitation and physiotherapy, search and rescue dog, deaf person, cancer detection, assistant to diabetic person, a veteran with a severe PTSD, and child with autism, disability, limited mobility, depression, suicide prevention, child in epilepsy, herding dog, border patrol, drug, anti-smuggling, military dog, bomb squad, canine unit, avalanche search and rescue, dog on the front line. And this is like a partial list. And we did a research, and the ADA, the American Act for Disability, there's a list of conditions that qualify a person to have a service dog. And there's about 37 or 36 different conditions that justify to have a service dog for a person as an assistant. So this is some of the things we want to produce. We want to put that together. And your support will give us the means to get where the action is and be able to film. Just before we get home, confined at home, I was working on a canine unit in the city, and I was almost ready to film. And then they said, no, you go home, you don't move, you stay there.
Yeah.
Don't come out until we tell you. But this is like one of the very next production we're going to do. So we have about 38 of these subjects. I just give you a list of 20 that we want to cover in the upcoming month. And we can do that only with your support. And your support don't require money. It requires just to subscribe to the video channel, The Dog Connection Show. Subscribe and thumbs up.
Okay, that's it.
Thumbs up.
Dale just says, Gaetan, how's your day going? You're awfully quiet. Well, you're not so quiet now.
No, it's my turn. I can talk now.
And, hey, let's say hi to Ron. That's my brother, Ron.
Hi, Ron.
And Kelly made a comment about what we were talking about before. reach out to the rescues, not the shelters. I'm inclined to agree with you too on that, Kelly. Of course, rehoming or a foster is actually the right way to. And then Roman's still here saying, wow. And oh man. And Gaetan, that's why you were so quiet. Yeah, right. So I wanted to mention that on Saturday, we finally have Mayor Max that's going to be on the show Saturday at 10 o'clock. We're excited to have him on. He's been very, very busy. You know, these mayors have been involved in the coronavirus, and he had to have all of the canines in his area comply with the rules. You know, they had to do social distancing and stuff. I think they even had some doggy masks too, which was really a cute thing. But exciting news. I've been working on what we're calling Crossing Rainbow Bridge, and that's a specific show. That's a series. It's a show of the dog connection, and hopefully I'm going to be starting that next week, and that will be another show. So we'll be having 2 shows every week, and that is not about dogs that have died and the boo-hoo side of it, but the celebration of life. And we want to hear your stories of how that dog brought you joy and was really made a difference in your life, and how you made a difference in their life. We'll also be having some grief and celebration of life private rooms so that people can share their stories privately. And then we'll have a lot of fun things. We'll read some stories and some fun things that will help you through the grief, because we know that it's a very difficult time, especially the day or 2 after you come home from the vet or wherever it is that you're without that dog and you have to spend that night. That's a critical time. So all of us that are dog lovers and have lost a dog before, we know that we can support you in a way that you want to be supported. It's nice to have somebody that doesn't own a dog say, gee, I'm sorry to hear that, but they don't get it. They absolutely don't get what it's all about. Okay.
That's great. I'm very happy. I'm excited for Saturday. And by the way, if the people wonder why I'm quiet, the name...
Because I'm always talking.
Nah, I can interrupt you. The name Gaetan mean, believe it or not, the quiet one.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
we
everybody.
enjoyed the show. Thanks, Roman. Thanks for being here. We loved having you on the show. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.